Thank you. I am truly honored to be here today. You're all a very hard act to follow. I appreciated everything that was just said by so many of you, and I hope that my presentation can do justice to the spirit of this gathering and this group. I do a lot of talking, a lot of talks like this, and usually I'm nervous. I slept like a log last night, and I think it's because I'd never met a group before affected by this particular rare disease, but you all have made me feel so at home here and so comfortable that I think I was able to sleep really deeply, and I appreciate that. I'm a psychologist, and as I won't go through everything Kelly already said, but I do work with many families like yours affected by rare disease and many professionals who care for us. I say us because you're about to hear some professional reflections and many personal, as I have a personal story that's led me here to be with you today. And what I'm going to share with you are 12 lessons today, lessons learned along the way of being both a professional and a dad caring for a boy and young man with rare disease. And the lessons I'm going to share, I believe, are universal. Last week I did a rare disease support group for another rare disease, and I turned on my Zoom back in Philadelphia, where I'm based, and 8 people showed up, and they were from 8 different countries. And they talked about all the same things you just did and all the same things that I'm about to share with you. My practice has evolved now. My license is good in 35 states because of COVID, so I'm learning a lot from a lot of people all over the country and in other countries too. And I had the pleasure of learning from all of you and your kids yesterday at the Youth Summit yesterday. I'll tell you a little bit about that a little later. So I'm going to talk for probably about 45 minutes. I used to be a 3rd grade teacher in my first career. So I always told the kids what I'm going to do and how long it will take. And then after 45 minutes, according to the schedule I saw, you have recess. And it's a beautiful day in San Diego for recess. So I hope you'll stick with me here. As I always told the kids, we'll learn something new today. Do your best to hang in here with me, and then it's recess time. That's the slide I thought I was on. Sorry about that. We're going to be talking about the lessons learned and the strategies I've learned myself as a dad and other people have taught me along the way from my son's journey that began in 1995 to today. And I put my email address there. I'm really, really good at what I do, but I'm bad at talking about it. I set up a website. My daughter said I should. So rarecounseling.com is like this week. And she told me that I had to say that because otherwise no one will know it's there. So that's brand new. What I'm going to share today is based on first my experience as a dad. My son Jack was born tomorrow, April 23rd, 1995. Healthy 8.5-pound baby in Madison, Wisconsin, where I was finishing my doctorate in counseling psychology. Jack was diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy, which at the time was an incurable, untreatable, incurable muscle disease. Similar to some of the boys you see driving around the hotel. There's a muscular dystrophy conference here in the building by coincidence. These boys look a lot like mine did. And at the time, there was no treatment, no cure for spinal muscular atrophy. Was really, really lucky to have Jack a long time, because I'm about to share with you what happened when he was diagnosed. He's the reason I'm here. I have a PhD, but the professors didn't teach me half as much as my boy did. So what you're going to hear today is because of my experience that parallels yours. Lesson number 1. This slide could be a little clearer. Lesson number 1 for today is trauma is real and can last. The trauma of a diagnosis is real and can last. And I heard those stories from your kids yesterday. The diagnostic journey and the moment that our lives turn upside down is very, very traumatic. And for me, that was November 7th, 1995. It was election day in Philadelphia when we were told that our healthy baby was diagnosed with a rare, incurable disease called SMA. And we were told that Jack would live for 1 year from the time of that diagnosis in 1995, and we were told there was really nothing we could do. We were told about ventilators and wheelchairs and feeding tubes and DNR and CPR and hospital stuff, and it was a really, really painful and complicated time. For any one of us who is diagnosed or has a family member diagnosed with a rare disease, that moment is seared into our souls. I always remember the sights and the sounds of that day, what the doctor said, their voices, the smells, the sights, everything about that day is then burned into my soul. And every patient I see, every family member I talk to has a story about when their lives changed from being typical to not being typical. Everything flipped upside down. The most common question I get as a doctor is, Dr. Al, is this normal? Is it normal that I can't sleep at night? Is it normal that I cry? Is it normal that I'm imagining other bad things could happen to me? Is it normal? And the answer when I'm talking with somebody who's affected by a rare disease is yes. It's a normal reaction to a very acute set of stressors. Any person who experienced what I did that day would have an unusual response. And even Dr. Al, the psychologist, had very unusual responses. I was driving 40 miles an hour on the right lane of the highway thinking I would get in a car accident. I was afraid to set the fireplace in the house we were living in, that I would burn the house down. If something this bad could happen, something else bad could happen. Your mind can play tricks on you when you're new at something so unusual. Through my presentation here, I'll share a photograph that goes with each concept, one or two. This is a very younger version of me and Jack, and this might have been a couple of weeks after his diagnosis. And I look at this photo. We don't have many photos of that time because of how traumatic it was. It wasn't a happy time to take pictures. But there Jack is sitting in my lap, and I can see on my face the exhaustion, both physical and mental, that I felt at the time, trying to figure out how to be a dad in this situation. It was so kind of mind-blowing that I had this baby in my lap, and he wouldn't be here more than a year. It was just hard to get my arms around that. Jack, though, as you can see, had a smile on his face, bright eyes, happy as a clam that Dad has him on his lap. And I learned from Jack what to do. I just looked at his face and I followed his lead. The kids often lead us, and Jack did that at that moment early on during the trauma of his diagnosis for me. He was too little to understand. He was 6 months old. But I had to keep being his dad somehow. And that's what he taught me to do. But lesson number one, trauma is real and can last. Yes, whatever it is you ask me is normal. Lesson number two, universal concept for those of us affected by rare disease. It's very hard to live with uncertainty. All of you, all of the families I work with, we all deal with a certain level of uncertainty when we have a medically fragile family member or we're medically fragile ourselves. What is going to happen next? In my case, it was how long will my child live? Will the cold that he's getting turn into nothing, or a week or a month in the hospital, or might we lose him? I had a suitcase in the back of my car for 20 years with 2 days, 3 days worth of clothes and a toothbrush because I never knew when we were going to end up in the pediatric intensive care unit. It's very hard to live with uncertainty, and it's very important to learn how to do that. And what I learned to do, and what most of my clients eventually do once getting through the trauma of the diagnosis, is to flip things upside down and feel grateful for every day. Every day of stability, every day of certainty, every day of a routine is a gift. And we start to grab onto and appreciate the normalcy of a typical day. We adapt to our version of normal, which is atypical. And we hold on to stability in the moment, in the present, and we treasure those moments of certainty while we're tolerating the ambiguity of uncertainty. The longer we're along this journey, the easier it is to do this, or the less hard it is to do this, for sure. Was for me. This was Jack's first birthday, so this would be April 23rd, 1996. We were wondering, Jack's mom and I, how do we do this? Is it the right thing to do to have a birthday party? It was so hard, that type of uncertainty, we didn't even know if we should have a birthday party. And thankfully, we did. A social worker said, hey, if Jack didn't have this rare disease, you would have a birthday party for him. You should celebrate that you made it to this milestone. He was happy. He got gifts. We had to sort of teach our parents and our cousins and uncles and aunts that it was okay to be joyful on his birthday for him. And we did. This was a symbol of our living with uncertainty early on, in those early days. Another version of uncertainty that many of our families live with, and I know you do too, is the hospital. Everybody here, or many of the people here I've talked to, have a hospital story. It's no fun to live in the hospital at all. I spent 250, 300 nights, I lost count, over 25 years with Jack in the hospital. This is the pediatric intensive care unit at Nemours Children's Hospital in Wilmington, Delaware. And that's Jack with Nurse Chuck at the end of what appears to be one of Jack's longer hospitalizations, because I see get well cards hanging up in the background. If we've decorated the room, we've been there a while. It's our home away from home. And the t-shirt I'm wearing, I chose this photograph because this t-shirt I'm wearing is a symbol of what families like us do. Never give up. One of the moms who has a kid like mine made these t-shirts, and when we go to our conference, we all wear never give up. And I sense that among your group, a determination to stay with it, to not give up in the face of uncertainty. We never knew when Jack landed in the hospital what was going to happen. And thankfully, the first 20 times he came home and he was just as happy as he looks in that picture. For him, every day was a party. And I think that was probably a day or two before we went home, after living with uncertainty and not knowing if he was going to make it home. Lesson number 2, it's hard to live with uncertainty. What do you do when you're given no hope? We were given a lot of information by the doctors. We were given a lot of medical equipment. We were given a lot of time, but we weren't given a lot of hope at the time. And how do you move? Your leader, Josh, yesterday said it concretely, from fear to hope. How do you move from a place of fear to a place of hope? That's what you're all doing when you're together here. That's what Josh said yesterday. That's what I needed to figure out how to do. Hope is a scarce commodity when you're in a situation like this. And I got hope from a few people along the way. A nurse at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia who looked at Jack in those first weeks and said, he looks pretty good, which is a little confusing to me after what we heard from the doctors. He looks pretty good to me. I'm still in touch with that nurse 28 years later. A mom wrote a letter in a newsletter in our SMA organization about a boy named Charlie, and Charlie had passed away. And she wrote positively about Charlie's life and looked back upon all the things they did together. And she wrote, I look back with gratitude for all we did with Charlie, even though he lived a short life. He lived till about 3. That gave me hope. You could lose a child and still look back on the child's life in a meaningful way and not all negatively. These people in our community gave me hope. A third person that gave me hope was this woman named June Price who lived in Milwaukee. And she wrote a letter in the same newsletter that I had read Charlie's mom's letter. And she has SMA like Jack did. And June Price wrote, Dear parents of newly diagnosed kids, I know this is really hard for you. I know that you're not sure what to do in the face of this diagnosis. When I was diagnosed, she wrote, my parents were told I would only live till 2. And when I was 2, they were told I would only live till 5. And when I was 5, they were told I'd only live till 10. And my dad, he kind of sat around waiting for me to die. And now I'm 54 years old, and I have a partner, and I have a job, and I have an apartment, and I have a good life. And my dad's been gone 20 years. So I hope that you will live every day as though your child will live. That's the right thing to do. She was a cheerleader and a coach for me and for many of our families for a number of years. Everybody comes to Dr. Al for guidance and support. Dr. Al went to June Price when things were tough. That's who I would call. And she lived to her 60s. We had a visit with her in Milwaukee. Jack had a long day here. We didn't get pictures. That's not the best picture of him. He was ready to get back home to Madison, Wisconsin from Milwaukee that day. But what a gift to have hope from a person like Jean who gave us inspiration. I see that here as you are all feeding off the hope from each other, as you see each other move through this journey together and have hope from people who are further ahead than you are in that journey and can offer you that wisdom as June offered me. Lesson number 3, hope breeds hope. Lesson number 4, family matters. Everything begins and ends with our families, and support from our families is invaluable when we're faced with an extraordinarily unusual medical situation. Sometimes our extended family members don't quite know what to do, and sometimes we have to teach them what to do, because people, family and friends, if they don't know what to do in an unusual situation, they will sometimes stay back and not do anything because they don't want to do the wrong thing. So I've learned this along the way, personally and professionally. I've been lucky with my family. This is a photograph of Jack and our family maybe 3 years ago or so. Very lucky to have such support. Jack was always at the center of the family, as you see symbolized in this photograph. Directly behind Jack is my brother David, who's now living in Florida, and on the left of my brother are my parents. My mom passed last summer at 87. My dad's 93. And next to Jack, on the left in the photograph, is my daughter Kara. But she took her first full-time job at NORD, the National Organization of Rare Diseases, and she's working in the patient registries area. So I'm very proud of Kara, my daughter. It's very hard to be a sibling of a child with a rare disease. And again, I saw the siblings yesterday across the hall from where I was with the patient youth summit group. And our siblings bear a lot of burden because we as parents have to have our focus and our hands and our minds on our more fragile child. I'm very proud of Kara and my family for being so supportive for so many years. Lesson number 4 is family matters. Lesson number 5 for today. Community strengthens and supports. Community is a very, very important word to me. And there are many different types of communities that we live in, that we're part of. And all of them can be helpful to families like ours in unusual situations. We have our neighborhood communities, we have our faith communities, we have our school communities where our kids go to school, we have our work communities, and we have our rare disease communities where we are today. People want to help, and I think sometimes, as I said just before, people don't know how to help. But when they're educated and they're told that they can help and how they can help, it makes a huge difference. Just having the neighbor for a couple years drive my daughter to her soccer practice was a huge help because we couldn't get Jack in his wheelchair in his van and take little sister to soccer practice easily. It was hard to do. Communities of all kinds rally together and help families. Last week I was in Chicago and with a family, my partner, my girlfriend's cousin, almost drowned a little boy in a pool in Chicago, and he lived, but he's got a lifelong challenge on his hands with some brain damage. And I went to this event in Chicago, and there were 500 people there, family and friends, raising money to help this family with their medical expenses. It's a horrible situation for Patty's cousin to be in, but people rally, people want to help. Our rare disease communities are very, very, very special. as you are experiencing this weekend, and I have too. As Josh said yesterday, rare disease communities are like family. This is your family. My extended family is our Cure SMA group. This is an example, a symbol of community strengthening and supporting. At the start of our annual conference, which will be in June in Orlando, we start with an icebreaker called the Researcher Relay Race, where children with SMA, like my son, race against famous scientists and researchers and doctors. And the famous scientists and research and doctors lose every single race. And it's a way for everybody. We have a research conference, a medical conference, and a family conference simultaneously. So everyone's in the same room, and that spirit of community and the spirit of connection is palpable through the room. There are strength in numbers, just as there are here with you. We are very lucky to have each other. You're very lucky to have each other, and that's why I'm honored to be invited to be part of your family today. Community strengthen and support. A second symbol of my own connection to our community, our rare disease community, is what we call the Kids Talk It Out group, which we did yesterday here a little bit differently. I did a little coaching here to help along the plan for the Youth Summit. For about 20 years, I've had the honor and the privilege to do what we call Kids Talk It Out. And this is the end of the session. Our kids don't have a lot of opportunity to talk about the experience of having a rare disease. And we have groups by age. For about 20 years, I've probably done 50 or 60 of these groups. I do it together with a partner who's hiding in the back right corner in her power chair, Angela, who also has SMA, a remarkable 40-year-old teacher in Houston who teaches able-bodied kids using her wheelchair. She's amazing, and she and I do this together. You'll see my daughter on the left there in her orange shirt is a volunteer and volunteers at our version of Youth Summit. And these kids are just as yours were yesterday, articulate, smart, and hungry for the opportunity to share their experience. They always ask, Dr. Al, how can we get our parents to stop worrying about us so much? The girls give each other advice about how to go to the middle school dance when they're in a wheelchair. They give each other advice about awkward situations they find themselves in when adults assume that because they have a physical limitation that they have a cognitive limitation too, and adults often will talk over their heads, literally. So the kids give each other advice on all kinds of things, and this is a symbol to me of the strength of community for our adults and for our children. Lesson number 5, community strengthens and supports. Lesson number 6, friends make a huge difference. Who can we really count on when the chips are down? Who sticks with you? Who sticks with us when the going gets tough? Who helps you feel included versus excluded? Rare disease, as it was mentioned yesterday, can feel lonely. It can feel lonely to be in this situation. And it's really important for each of us to stick with our friends and to help our friends stick with us when we're going through unusual things. The kids always talk about their friends. They did here yesterday too. The kids at our SMA group always talk about the kids who stick with them, even when something unusual is happening in their lives. And when, in our case, the kids can't go trick-or-treating the same way, they always talk about the child who will walk on the sidewalk with them instead of across the grass because their wheelchair only goes on the sidewalk. They don't get as much candy, but they stick with me. That's what the kids talk about. Friends make a huge difference, and they did for Jack. This is Jack's high school prom. And the girl next to Jack did a promposal, a big sign. He was so excited. And I found out later that Jane is a triplet and was born prematurely. Spent a lot of time in the hospital with her brother and sister. She didn't know Jack that well, but she saw him driving his chair around the high school and asked him to be her prom date. So Jack had a great time that night with Jane and all the other kids. He was included. He wasn't able to spend the whole night as all the other kids do because he couldn't stay up that late, but he had a ball. Friends make a huge difference, and when friends stick with us and with our kids, it goes a long way. Universal concepts here. And this is true with or without a rare disease. Friends make a huge difference. Lesson number 6. Lesson number 7. When you have a rare disease, you meet a lot of doctors and nurses and other medical professionals. They're people too. They're really wonderful people, and they work hard, and they're working under difficult conditions. And they're stressed because we're stressed. They're stressed because their patients are stressed. They have their own families. They have their own challenges. They have to know a lot about a lot of diseases. We know a lot about one. We have to learn to work together as teammates with doctors and nurses, even though we sometimes find ourselves in a situation where we know more than the doctor knows about our condition, our child's condition. That can be frustrating. It always made me feel safer when the person I was with knew more than I did about my son's condition. But when you have a rare disease, it's hard to find those people. So we need to be respectful. We need to be teammates. We need to understand that they're doing their best, and we need to be partners. And some doctors want to learn things that they don't know. They're the ones we want. They're the ones we want. The doctor that would come in my son's hospital room at 2 in the morning, the young resident who looked like it could be my kid, would come in the room. If they looked at me and asked me what I thought, they were going to be a good doctor someday. If they came in the room at 2 in the morning and started giving orders without asking any questions, that made me nervous. So there are doctors of all kinds. They all have personalities, they all have styles, and we have to work with them and do the best we can to help them help our kids. This is my boy with Dr. John Bransema, who's a pediatric neurologist in Philadelphia. And this is a guy who he still comes to the fundraisers on a Sunday where we're raising money for research on his own time, because he cares about his patients, because he wants to get to know his patients as people rather than just charts, and rather than just patients. Dr. Bransema is a wonderful guy, and he's a friend of mine, and we serve on a medical advisory board together. And I'm very lucky that he cared for my son as long as he did. Lesson number 8, scientific progress. You've got some approved treatments now. So does SMA. These treatments bring a lot of new hope, and they bring some unexpected and unanticipated challenges as well. Right now, if a boy like mine was born in Pennsylvania and is screened at birth, given gene therapy, and there are 2 other treatments that can be given later, and the babies who are treated before the muscles weaken are walking. It's a miracle what can happen. Science can be a miracle. And I think for you industry partners who are here, I do some consulting with industry. Your job, as I see it, is to live up to the standard of the treatment itself while you're interacting with our families. The treatments work. When they work really well, it's a good thing for everybody. And the industry partners are working hard to understand what our families need beyond the treatment, in addition to the treatment, along with the treatment. There are new challenges as far as access. Not everybody gets the treatment. Not everybody can afford the treatment. Not all the insurance companies will pay for the treatment. So then we have haves and have-nots. How does a rare disease community manage that? We want to stay together as a community, even when our experiences differ. We want to make space for everybody in every rare disease community, whether they have treatment or not, whether they have symptoms or not. The new hope comes with some unique challenges that I've been involved in, and as a professional, and it's very important that we take into consideration everybody's experience when treatments become available to some, but not everybody. Tossed in a couple pictures. This is a famous scientist named Arthur Burgess from Ohio State. He used to stuff goodie bags 25 years ago at the conference, and when I was a scared new dad, I didn't even know who he was, and he just sat and had a beer with me and listened to me. Because of Arthur, these treatments have happened. He did the research on mice and fish and I think primates, and that led to the progress that's led to treatments for humans. He's moved us into the future. The reason I'm wearing a Philadelphia Eagles jersey there is because 5 years ago, after we won the Super Bowl, the conference was in Dallas. So to do my civic duty, I brought 3 Eagles jerseys or 4, and I rotated them for 5 days in a row, just to annoy as many Dallas Cowboys fans as I could find in Dallas. In fact, I almost refused to go to the conference because it was in Dallas, but my friends at Cure SMA said, "Do it for the kids, Al," so I came with my jersey. This is a family, a little boy named Shane, who lives in the Philadelphia area, who's received SMA treatment, and we became friends with this family. His journey is going to be different than Jack's, and this is a symbol of our families sticking together. Although different generations, entirely different experiences, we became friends with this family, and during COVID, when everyone was locked down, I'd come into the house, and Jack would be on a Zoom talking to Regina and Chris and Shane while they were eating dinner. They were his buddy, and would have chats with him on Zoom all the time. And when Jack passed, they were at his memorial service. These are good friends of ours now, and will always be, representing scientific progress, bringing new hope. We feel so good when we've worked so hard to find treatments, even if they don't help our own family member. We know they're going to help the next generation, and that means a lot to us. Lesson number 9. We know that we're in life-threatening situations sometimes when we have a rare disease, and physical health, medical health has to come first. But emotional health is important too. In my own case, I was busy literally having to do everything I could do to keep Jack alive, and that's what our families had to do a lot of the time. So we didn't have time to talk about how we felt. We had to just take care of medical needs. But I reminded myself after a few years of this, hey, I'm a psychologist. Emotional health is important too. Mental health is important too. And it's important that we all take the time to understand how we're feeling, reflect on it, get help if we need it. And now my practice is at least half of my patients are families affected by a rare disease. And I feel that it's almost an obligation for me to serve families like yours and mine who find themselves in unusual situations. Everybody needs to feel they have a voice. I so appreciated what you said when you stood up. Your daughter feels like she has a voice. And when we have our groups, as we did yesterday here, the kids feel like they have a voice. They have an opportunity to talk with each other. They have the opportunity to teach each other what their experiences are like. They have the opportunity, and we do too, to compare notes and to understand that the experience we're having is similar to the experience you're having. It feels reassuring. It helps us feel grounded. It helps us feel less scared when we have shared experiences and when we can talk about it. Some people have mental health symptoms prior to having a rare disease. Some people have mental health symptoms because of a rare disease. Sometimes professionals miss the fact that someone can have a predisposition to anxiety or depression before being affected by a rare disease. It's very easy for a professional to hear, oh, you have a rare kidney disease that's life-threatening. Of course you have mental health symptoms. They might miss the fact that you had a pre-existing vulnerability to depression or anxiety before that happened. I see this all the time. Emotional health is important too. Your kids yesterday, by the way, were wonderful. I found myself sitting in a small group. We divided the teenagers up into groups to create conditions under which they'd be more likely to talk, and that worked really well. And I learned more from your kids yesterday. 4 teenagers I was sitting with. That helped me do this today. They were smart, they were articulate, they were open, they talked about their diagnosis. Each of them shared their diagnosis story. They each shared about their medications they were taking and how they affect them. They each shared their experiences with hospital, with disruption in their lives, with what to say and what not to say to their friends when they, quote, disappeared, because they don't have as visible to the eye a disability or a rare disease as my son did and others that I work with. And I asked them about that. In a way, it may be more complex to have an unusual rare disease that other people can't see. Everybody could see my child's wheelchair. They knew there was something different about Jack. Didn't have to work too hard to figure out there was something unusual going on. So they talked about that too. I asked them about their social worlds and how and whether their social lives were affected or disrupted by having a rare kidney disease. And I talked about that a little bit. And mostly they talk like normal teenagers about their friends. When I asked them about their social lives and how this all affects them, they said, "Oh no, we're fine." One girl said, "We joke around a lot, and we tell Florida man stories." And the other kids all knew what Florida man stories were, and I felt left out. I'm the old guy. What's a Florida man story? Help me out here. So they said, "Dr. Al, you type in Florida man on Google, you Google Florida man, and then put your birthday, and you'll see headlines of crazy things that Florida men do." So I said, I work with a lot of families. I do a lot of talks, work with kids for 35 years. But this is new. Thanks for something new. So I came to lunch here. I sat here, got my lunch, and typed in Florida man and my birthday. It works. I typed in my birthday. Here's what I got. Thanks to your kids. Florida man impersonating a police officer pulls over real cops. And then I typed in my daughter's birthday, and I got Florida man runs around beer store waving live alligator. So I learned something new at every conference I speak at, and with every group that I work with, and I wanted to thank you personally for this new knowledge. And my daughter knew what Florida man stories were too, but she hadn't heard those too, so she was appreciative. Oh, this is a little girl that her voice was heard that day some years ago at our conference. It's so important for kids to feel heard, for kids to have this opportunity, for all of us to have the opportunity to share our experiences. That's lesson number 9, and thanks for Florida man. Lesson number 10, we got 3 more to go here. Thanks for hanging in with me. Transitions. Transitions for families like ours are monumental when we get from one phase to another. The first transition is the trauma of the diagnosis to a new normal. Other transitions that are the hospital back to home, home to the hospital, pre-treatment, post-treatment. For you, I've heard the phrase remission, in remission, not in remission. Through this day or two I've been here, these are very important transitions, and for families affected by rare disease, they're very complicated. Jack went from, this was the last group picture he took, 8th grade up to high school, monumental transition, like any parents worried about how was high school going to go. But thankfully, this symbol of support, Jack's surrounded by his friends, your kids are surrounded by their friends. They find a way to make it through these transitions, and it's hard work for parents, and it's hard work for us when we're going through them, but they work somehow. We need to honor these transitions and expect them to be challenging. Expect them. We get periods of normalcy, and then we have a transition. For you all, the remission concept, I need to learn more about this. I know the least amount about rare kidney disease in the room, but I'm learning. And these transitions are complicated. They will elicit symptoms sometimes if you have mental health symptoms, and we need to ride through them and get to a period of normalcy. Expect transitions to be challenging. Lesson number 11. I learned from my boy that anything is possible. I learned that you can live longer than a year when the doctor tells you you're going to live for a year. I've learned that treatments can become available 20 years later. It was like the Flintstones era back then. Now it's the Jetsons. Now there are 3 approved treatments for the condition my son had. And you have approved treatments for this condition. I learned that you can live a fulfilling life. You can live a happy and fulfilling life while being affected by a rare disease. Jack here is 22 years old at the same Quaker school in Pennsylvania, newly hired as a staff member. He couldn't use a computer mouse with his hand, but he typed 20 words a minute with his eye, with a camera aiming at his eye. And he was banging out Excel spreadsheets and doing market research for the school and doing things on his computer that I couldn't do. So that was my anything is possible moment when my boy lived to 22, and then took a job at the same age I did, at the same school I did. We all have our anything is possible moments. I feel blessed to have had so many with my son for so many years. And I've learned from so many people in this world of rare disease that anything is possible. We need to stay focused as much as we can on what is possible rather than what is not possible. That is an important strategy when coping with rare disease. And my final lesson for today is that along with the rare disease, I've learned, this one took me many years. Along with the rare disease comes some unanticipated rare gifts. It took me a long time to figure this one out. Once I did, everything got easier. My son brought with him a lot of rare gifts. I see them in your kids too, and in all of you. Our patients and our kids model resilience. We're often told what won't be possible. We're not told what will be possible. We have to focus on that. We bounce back from adversity. We bounce back from challenges. Families like yours and mine are fighters, and the patients are fighters. They get knocked down, they get back up. It's a rare gift that our families have. Unexpected gift. This is Jack out of the hospital, one of his early hospitalizations. This is when he taught me about that gift of resilience. He had just gotten his brand new power chair. He was like 3. I was afraid to put him in the chair. I thought that he'd be too weak to drive it after a week in the hospital. I got him in the chair. He couldn't pick up blocks, but he liked to knock these big blocks down. And he was fine, but I was exhausted after picking them up 200 times. Our kids are very resilient. Our patients, our kids, our family members are pioneers. We have to do things different ways than most people do. We have to be creative. We have to adapt things in different ways. We are pioneers in how we participate in clinical trials, new treatments. It takes a lot of courage to take the leaps of faith that we do with our family members, with ourselves, with our kids, where we have to do things differently. And we do things for the first time that other people haven't done differently. It's a rare gift. This is my pioneer at camp in the summertime. I don't know about you, but it scares me to go on a zip line. Didn't scare Jack. He went to the camp. You sign the consent forms, sending your kid to camp. They don't tell you about the zip line. They don't tell you about a few things that you see on the film when they come back. The company that makes the ventilators wanted to put Jack in a commercial because they advertised the ventilator as portable. And they said, this gives new meaning to portable. Our children and our family members, our patients, are pioneers in many different ways at many different levels. Another real important and special rare gift that we have is that our patients, we all attract others who have compassion. My son was a magnet for open-hearted, compassionate people. None of us choose rare disease. It's like someone said yesterday, it's a club none of us chose to join. But other people who are attracted to helping us and choose to help us, nurses, doctors, therapists, industry partners, they could be doing other things, but they make the choice to get involved. They make the choice to help us, and they don't have to do that. We don't have a choice, but they do. My boy and so many others are magnets for compassionate, open-hearted people. Nurse Stacy took care of Jack for 9 years, 4 nights a week, some weeks, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Never missed a shift. When it was Thanksgiving or Christmas, I said, Stacy, are you going to be working on Thanksgiving or Christmas? She'd say, Al, Jack can't take a holiday. Why should I? So Jack had wonderful, open-hearted, compassionate people who were drawn into his life. And we had no shot without them. So a rare gift that I've discovered along the way is our people, our family members, our kids are magnets to open-hearted, wonderful people. And I'll always be grateful, and those relationships continue beyond Jack's lifetime for me. Another rare gift is our patients bring people together. Look at this group here. I think about that group in Chicago last week with the little boy named Cam who had that awful accident at the swimming pool. I think back to the school. This is the same Quaker school where Jack had a job. This is way out of chronological order. I was psychologist at the same school 10 years after I was a third grade teacher, and the high school kids, they were brought together by Jack. He was a little guy here. They raised money for research. The kids who got in trouble the most were the ones who were shoveling snow to make sure Jack could get out of the house and get his wheelchair out, and they would come visit. People like Jack and all of you and your kids bring people together. Our shared purpose to help, committed to taking care of each other. People come together. People want to help. It's a gift. And finally, probably the most important gift is our patients bring out the best in all of us. Everybody else's big problems are our small problems. Every time my son drove his chair into the room without saying a word, everybody else's big problems got small really fast. And everybody stepped up and wanted to help. Our family members, our kids, bring out the best in all of us. And I would say that as a dad, I'm a much better dad to my daughter and I was to Jack because of all of the challenges that he faced. He taught me how to be a good dad. Our family members bring out the best in all of us, and it's not easy. I can't tell you that these 26 years was easy. It was very hard, exhausting. And I wasn't able to get on an airplane and do something like this unless there was a nurse and a backup nurse. I had to have two. I couldn't really go anywhere. But I don't regret any of what we went through. Jack taught me so much. He brought out the best in me as a dad and I believe as a professional. And I believe he's still helping. That's why I'm here. I want to finish by sharing with you that when Jack passed, it was fairly sudden, and some of our kids passed suddenly without a whole lot of warning. It was October of 2021, and we were lucky in that we had time to say goodbye to him. He was airlifted to the hospital in Philly, and we had been in the hospital so many times that we knew about organ donation, and we'd seen other families go through this, usually without any warning. We had 25 years of warning. So we inquired about whether Jack's organs could be used by somebody else. We didn't think that would be possible because he obviously had a very weak body. But Jack's kidneys are living in 2 people in Philadelphia. And so when Kelly invited me to come here, I thought about it. It's April 23rd is Jack's birthday. I thought, should I be so far away from home on Jack's birthday? And I realized, just kind of as I did when I saw the kids in the chairs out there, I've always followed Jack's lead. And so I thought, okay, if I'm going to be anywhere, I travel a lot. If I'm going to be anywhere on Jack's birthday, this is where I should be. So I want to thank you for inviting me here. I hope these lessons learned have been helpful. I feel the same way about you. Thank you. Thank you. I hope the lessons learned have been helpful. I'm truly honored to be here today, and I'm glad Jack led me here to you. Kelly, if there's time, I'm more than happy. I want to make sure everyone has recess. But we have time for questions? Okay. I'm happy to answer questions, happy to receive your comments. I'll be here today and happy to talk with you outside of the room as well. There's no bad questions, no question too personal. Obviously, I've shared my whole story, and I'm more than happy if anyone has anything they want to say or ask me. And thank you for listening so intently. That was a long lesson.
I'll start. Dr. Al, for families who haven't yet inquired about mental health and therapy, where's the best place to start?
It's a good question, Kelly. It's not an easy question because honestly our mental health system in this country isn't working very well. So access to professionals isn't easy with or without a rare disease. If you're inquiring about a child, I would encourage you to speak with your child's school counselor or your child's pediatrician or any friends you have who've had support with mental health. And I would also ask at the hospital where your child is cared for or where you are cared for, adults too. Hospitals have social workers and have networks of people who have some experience with unusual situations. People don't find me by doing a Google search. People find me by word of mouth. So I would encourage you to ask other people in this room and outside of this room in the communities where you live and work who they have relied on to help them. There has been a change in licensure laws, as I mentioned. So psychologists like me with PhD and certain credentials is now allowed to see people across state lines. There are 35 states in the United States who have signed up for an interstate compact because of the pressure on state legislatures to get access to mental health services for their people. I used to have 2 offices. I now have no office, and I'm working remotely, seeing people around the country. In any of those 35 states I'm allowed to. So that's just called PsycPac. It's called the Interstate Compact, and you can look up who's on there. It's hard to find people who work at the intersection of rare disease and mental health as I do. I'm looking for company, frankly. If you know anybody, tell me, please. But if a therapist has experience working with families who've had unusual medical situations, life-altering changes. Generally, age is wisdom in my business, so experience helps, life experience helps. People who are in my field who've gone through difficult challenges, as I have, generally are better prepared to help others who've gone through difficult challenges. There's no easy answer to that one, Kelly, but I hope that helps to start. Hi.
Hi. So I'm going to take it from the other way. I'm a patient. My son was 6 years old when I was diagnosed, and I feel like I told him way too much information. How should parents communicate with their younger children when they're diagnosed with a chronic illness?
It's a great question, and I had this question yesterday. The answer is it depends on the age of the child and the nature of the illness. But children who are 6 understand things differently than children who are 10 or children who are 15. And you want to speak at a level a child can understand. You always want to be honest, but you don't want to give them more information than is necessary, or more information than they can understand. So you would speak for a 6-year-old in simpler terms, give them basic information, tell them that mom or dad had to go to the doctor and has a medical condition that needs attention and is being treated, and then listen up for the questions. So the real answer to this is follow your child's lead with the questions they ask. So if you feel like you're offering more information than you should, offer less and then wait for the questions. And when the questions come, answer them as honestly as you can, but as concretely and simply as you can, so as to provide honest information but not scare them. I hope that helps. You're welcome. Yes? Oh, that's common, a common challenge. The question was, how do you get your child mental health care when they don't want to? When I did have an office all those years and a teenager came into my office with that look on their face, my first question was, did you get into the car voluntarily, or did mom tie you up with a rope and stuff you in the trunk of the car? That was my icebreaker, and it worked really well most of the time. I really did say that. Teenage boys like that one. The answer is, my approach to this is to view the need as a family need with the child. So I will often have parents say to their child, I'm trying to be the best mom or dad. We're trying to be the best mom and dad that we can be for you. And we feel that we need a coach to help us, to help you. This is a family project. So the point here is not to shine a spotlight on the child and have the child feel that they're defective in some way or doing something wrong or a troublemaker in some way. That oftentimes it helps to frame the need as a family need. I typically meet with parents of a child before I ever meet with a child and do a consultation session. And then from that consultation session, the parents will then talk to the child and say to the child, we met with this guy, Dr. Al. He's a coach for moms and dads, and he's a coach for kids, and we'd like you to meet him with us. So the us is the key thing. And if you get that far, most of the time families get that far, then you hopefully have a therapist who can win over the child and having them see that they're not going to bite. Kids don't know what counseling is, mental health. There's a stigma, obviously, still in this country. They don't want to feel different than their friends. They don't want to feel like they're doing something wrong or they need something. That's normal. Actually, when kids say, I don't want to do this, it's normal. It's actually, I worry more about the kids who can't wait to come to talk to me. The ones that don't want to are normal. So I hope that helps as a start. Could go a lot longer on that one, but I hope it helps as a start. These are good questions.
I transplanted this past September. I did want to say thank you for donating. I haven't gone around to writing the letter to the family. I'm just very guilty internally.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you would want to hear from who you donated?
Thank you. I really appreciate this question because I have not yet written a letter to the 2 people who have Jack's kidneys, and I'm waiting. I'm doing that. I will do that. And I think the simple thing you could express is gratitude. I'm sorry for your family's loss, and you've given me new life, and I'm grateful. I'd keep it simple. And whether or not you hear back from them, they'll receive those sentiments. And if they don't write back to you, I will. Because I'm not sure if people who have Jack's kidneys will write back to me. It's a complicated thing. And I'm really eager to make a connection with the people who have Jack's kidneys. It's a beautiful thing to think that he's mobile now after all the years in the wheelchair, you know. So I'm looking forward to writing those letters. It's a year now since his memorial service, and we had it on his birthday. So I appreciate that question and happy to talk to you more, but I don't think you can go wrong with I'm sorry and thank you. Yeah. And I'm going to be writing thank you because Jack has new life. That's how I feel. And our experience may be different than other donors. I went to a meeting of donors, the Gift of Life program in Philadelphia, and many of the families lost family members abruptly in accidents and suddenly, and that's different. I'm only surprised Jack lived 26 years. So my journey as a donor family is very different, I think, than many others, which is why I feel more gratitude than grief about his life looking back. So I appreciate your question, given the more typical experience of a donor family. Can't go wrong with, I'm sorry for your loss and thank you so much. And I hope you're healthy. Yeah, thank you. I think that's a good place to finish. I thank you all for your kindness. I'll be here if I can help you all. Thank you for having me.